my happy place has always been right here, in my little bakery, Sweet Dreams. You know, that smell of vanilla and cinnamon, the hum of the ovens, it's my sanctuary. But one rainy morning, a phone call just blew that all to pieces. It was a lawyer. He told me my godmother, the legendary Eris Holloway, had passed away, and that she'd left me everything. And I don't mean a keepsake, I mean her entire life's work, the famous Atlanta restaurant, the Legacy Crown. So, along with all the legal documents, the lawyer gives me this letter from Aries. I couldn't bring myself to open it right away, but these words, written in her handwriting, they became my lifeline. I had absolutely no idea how much I was going to need them, how they would literally pull me through the train wreck my life was about to become. I mean, it was just surreal. One minute I'm covered in flour making croissants, and the next I own a multi-million-dollar restaurant. The shock was intense. The Legacy Crown wasn't just some restaurant, it was an institution in Atlanta. I could feel the weight of 30 years of her blood, sweat, and tears landing right on my shoulders. It was a ton of pressure, but then I'd think about her letter, her belief in me, and I knew I had to try. I just had to. When I finally got home, all I wanted was a quiet minute to let this sink in. But nope, Jarvis was already there, a whiskey in his hand at 2 in the afternoon. Somehow he'd already heard the news, and he was freaking out, pacing, telling me there was no way I could handle a business this big. It was so weird. For years, my bakery was just my cute little hobby. Now that something with actual money was on the line, he was suddenly an expert. So I'm trying to explain what's going on, and I call it my inheritance. And that's when he stops me. Our inheritance, he says. We're married, remember? Wow. Those words just hit me like a ton of bricks. 6 years, and he'd shown zero interest in my work. Now that there are millions of dollars involved, it's suddenly ours. And right then, it just clicked. This wasn't about us. This was about the money. That night, my mother-in-law, Tamsin, comes over for dinner. Now, this is a woman who has always looked down her nose at me, always calling me the baker, like it's an insult. She swans in, smelling like a department store, and before we even get to the salad, she and Jarvis lay out their grand plan to take over my restaurant. Listening to them felt like an out-of-body experience. It was like I was a ghost in my own house. Tamsin just lays it all out. She, a former accountant, would take over management. Jarvis would handle the website. And me, I could do the desserts. They were talking about my inheritance, my future, as if I wasn't even sitting right there. I was just stunned into silence. After dinner, Jarvis slides a power of attorney across the table. His mother's lawyer had already drawn it up. It would give Tamsin total control of everything. He's pushing me, saying the head chef is about to quit, which I knew was a total lie. And in that moment, Aries' words just flashed in my head. Believe in yourself. And something in me just snapped. For the very first time, I stood up to him. I just said no. Well, that sent him into a rage. A little while later, Tamsin shows up like a hurricane. And when I still refused to back down, Jarvis does the one thing I never thought he would. He walks over to the table, snatches the official ownership documents that Aries left for me, and just hands them straight to his mother. Here, Mom, he said, the restaurant is yours now. He just gave it away. I just walked out, no screaming, no tears. I just left. I drove to my bakery, the only place that still felt like mine. And a weird sense of calm came over me, like determination. So I made a late-night call to Aris's lawyer, Barclay Quinn. I told him everything that happened, and you know what? He just chuckled. He told me that what my husband did wasn't just a betrayal, it was completely 100% illegal. And then, Barclay let me in on Aries' secret genius. See, for the past year, she'd been restructuring the whole business, building this legal fortress around her legacy. Think of it like this. Instead of the restaurant being one big treasure chest for them to grab, she'd split everything up into a bunch of smaller, locked boxes. And guess who had all the keys? Me. It was brilliant. So Tamsin had the physical papers for the restaurant name, but she didn't have anything that actually mattered. The building itself, in my name. The priceless wine collection, a totally separate legal entity. The kitchen equipment, the vendor contracts, even the brand name, the Legacy Crown, all of it was locked down in companies that only I controlled. They had an empty shell, but I had the soul of the place. The lawyer told me, we can go in there tomorrow and take it all back. But I had a different idea. Aries had given me all the power, and I was going to be smart about it. My strategy was simple. Do nothing.
Let them think they'd won. You know what they say, right? Sometimes you just gotta give people enough rope to hang themselves.
So my first call was to the people Aries trusted most, Chef Bram and the manager, Nita. They became my spies, my eyes and ears on the inside. Every day they'd call with updates, and every day the news got worse. I was basically watching from the sidelines as Tamsin systematically destroyed a 30-year legacy. Oh, it was like a masterclass in how to run a business into the ground. She fired amazing people, she tried to sell off the wine, which she couldn't legally do, and she started replacing these beautiful gourmet ingredients with cheap, frozen junk. She even insulted a state representative, a regular for 20 years, because her friend wanted his table. She was completely out of her league. And it all happened so fast. I mean, within 5 days, Chef Brom quit. He just refused to cook with frozen food. 3 days after that, a huge food critic published this devastating review called Crown and Freefall. It went viral, the restaurant was losing money hand over fist, her little empire was crumbling. And that was my cue. On day 10, I sent in the lawyers. Legally, every important piece was mine. The moving trucks pulled right up to the front door of the Legacy Crown. We took the entire state-of-the-art kitchen. We took the whole $200,000 wine collection. We even took the custom furniture. We left her with nothing but an empty building and a mountain of debt she'd taken out against her own house. But this was never just about revenge. It was about rebuilding. With all the assets Aries left me and a secret investment account I didn't even know about, I leased this beautiful old building in a historic part of town. With Chef Bram, Nita, and the rest of the crew by my side, we started building something new. We called it Aries' Legacy. And get this, before we even put up a sign or made a single announcement, we had 24 confirmed reservations for opening night, just from word of mouth. That number, that wasn't about me. That was a testament to the community and the loyalty Aries had built her whole life. People didn't just love her restaurant, they loved her. Right before we opened the doors, he appeared. Jarvis. He looked exhausted, defeated. He didn't come to argue, he just came to wish me luck and to tell me he was proud of me. He finally admitted how wrong he and his mother had been, that he'd been weak and that he was moving out to figure out who he was without her pulling the strings. And then he asked the question I knew was coming. What about us? Do we have a future? A few weeks ago, that question would have broken me. But now, I was different. I told him the truth. I didn't know. I told him I needed space, and that if we ever had a future, it couldn't be anything like the past. For the first time, I was putting myself first. A few days later, Tamsin came to see me, humbled, broke, apologetic. And I made a choice. I was about to sell the old Crown building, but instead, I offered to lease it to her at a fair price so she could try to build her own restaurant the right way. It wasn't about forgiveness, not really. It was about doing what Aries would have done. Find a solution that doesn't just burn everything to the ground. Through this whole mess, I lost a marriage, but I absolutely found myself. Aries didn't just leave me a restaurant. She left me a test. She pushed me to become the strong, confident person she always believed I was. Her real legacy isn't just the food we serve. It's the strength she gave me to build a life on my own terms. Looking back on all of it, it leaves you with a really tough question, doesn't it? When you're betrayed by the people who are supposed to love you most, what do you owe them? What's more important, that loyalty to family, no matter what, or fighting for the justice you deserve? It's definitely something to think about.